thank you, Ms. Vargas, for inviting me and the advisors as well. And to the students, I'm very, very privileged to be here. As Jenny mentioned, I launched a nonprofit a year and a half ago. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the way of community service, which I understand all of the candidates here have to do some of that, and hopefully will continue to do so in the future. I actually typed up my speech, and it's called Not Just to Score a Point, but to Change Your Mind. At about 2 in the morning last week, which is my custom these days, sadly, I'm not just coming home from partying, which may have been the case when I was your age in New York City. I came across an article about 2 leaders who were participating in the Women in the World Summit held in New York City earlier this month. The summit features an array of powerhouse leaders and change makers, including the likes of Tina Brown, Meryl Streep, Adele, Senator Susan Collins of Maine, and Senator Kristen Gillibrand of New York. This article that I came across was an interview moderated by Thomas Friedman of the New York Times, who was interviewing Christine Lagarde, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, and Hillary Clinton, whom I think we all know. In the article, they quote Hillary on her advice for young women entering professional or political life. Here's what she had to say. You have to play both an outside and an inside game, Clinton said. On the outside, you have to find ways to raise these issues, in this case she was referring to the double standard for women, that are truly rooted in sexism or in old-fashioned irrelevant expectations about women's lives. Not just to score a point, but to change a mind. And that kind of stuck with me. And again, I want to read that. On the outside, you have to find ways to raise these issues that are truly rooted in sexism or in old-fashioned, irrelevant expectations about women's lives, not just to score a point, but to change a mind. Quoting Eleanor Roosevelt, Clinton suggested that women who wanted to be players in the big public debates of the day had to grow a skin as thick as a hide or a rhinoceros. You should take criticism seriously, she said, now addressing the audience, because you might learn something, but you can't let it crush you. And despite whatever the personal setbacks, even insults that may come your way. And that takes a sense of humor about yourself and others, and that is very, very true. Believe me, she said, this is hard-won advice that I am now putting forth here. So, let's talk about this rhinoceros hide. I had a rhinoceros hide too. It was added layer by layer as I grew up. I grew up with 3 older brothers back in the Bronx, in New York City. So, if it wasn't for one of my 3 brothers giving me a hard time about being the youngest, being the smallest, not getting to watch what I wanted to watch on the one TV we had in the house, typical fare in our home consisted of Combat, Rifleman, or Hogan's Heroes, for those of you in the audience that can appreciate that. Or getting into the one bathroom when I wanted to, or on the other hand, being rushed out of that bathroom when I didn't want to. So if it wasn't any of those things happening in my house, it was happening on the streets of my neighborhood. A frog's neck in the Bronx. We played most evenings, every evening. Not every evening in the summer, certainly, but you would walk outside where I lived and you would have 20 friends instantly from all over the neighborhood. We would play kick the can, Ring-a-Lario, arrows, tag, hot peas, butter, and cheese, and for those of you that are from the north, you may know some of those games. They were all team games, by the way. By stepping outside of our homes and onto our streets, I was just as often made to stand my ground on my choices. In the baddest borough there is in New York City, the Bronx, people have a tendency to get in your face, literally. So if you were going to make it in the city and on Wall Street, where I eventually landed my first job out of college, you had to have that rhinoceros skin Eleanor Roosevelt and Hillary referred to. I thought maybe, though, that we had moved the needle a bit on this issue of sexism, when I was reminded again when I was at a meeting a few months ago at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, which I suggest everyone go to, by the way. It's a fabulous, inspirational space. And if you have a chance to get there, please go. We're trying to get some of our students here at UFOG to go in the month of May. But I was there, and up on stage was a group of female entrepreneurs. A young gentleman in the audience asked a question of one of the panelists along these lines. Panelists, again, are all women. He says, I run a tech company. We are 9 men. We are messy, rude, we tell crass jokes about women. We're insulated, and there's just a culture of a frat house in our workplace. We want more women to work with us. How do we do that?
Oh, wow.
Pretty tough. At that moment, I thought, wow, what an opportunity to help this guy. First of all, he had the courage to raise his hand in this room. It was a packed room of about 50, 60 people. And he's a young guy. He's a young, techie kind of guy. And I thought that took a lot of courage. And I thought, what an opportunity. He's really asking for help. He's a business owner who sees the merits of including women in the company and knows his company can profit from having women among his employees in a field, technology, which is predominantly male. You want to know what the woman entrepreneur responded, or how she responded. She said, hire women who can suck it up and live with it. End of her advice. At that moment, I took a breath. I looked around the room to see if anyone had budged. No one had budged. I thought, well, doesn't anyone think that? Maybe that's just not the right answer. They moved on to the next question. The answer came from a leading woman entrepreneur in our community. Some of you may know her. She's held up to be quite the leader for other enterprising women, but not at that moment. She scored a point, being one of the boys, and let the girls be one of the boys. She certainly didn't change anyone's mind, and her advice was useless to the young gentleman who had the courage to ask the question in the packed room. It was a missed opportunity for her to speak out about, among other things, hiring practices, such as not hiring in your own likeness, hiring a cohort so that the women will feel there is a critical mass, hanging with the guys to let them know, to get them on board what we want to change in the company culture. At that moment, when I heard her response, I thought, why do women have to suck it up? We've been sucking it up all my life. Why should the women have to listen to the stereotypical jokes while working? Goodness knows I had to do it time and again on Wall Street and on Madison Avenue, where I spent about a year and a half before going to Wall Street. The sense of humor went a very long way. Back to that sense of humor that Hillary mentioned, I do agree with that. It went a very long way with me, and it will go a very long way with all of you here in the audience, male or female. Sucking it up as a policy hasn't resulted in getting the number of women we need in STEM careers. STEM, of course, being science, technology, engineering, and math. Sucking it up is not a good policy. It's not a good national policy, nor a good company culture policy. I want to now share with you some interesting information as it relates to the lack of women in the M of STEM, math, and particularly finance. And I understand we have a math teacher on board here. Okay, cool. In an article that appeared in the Harvard Business Review entitled, "In the Hot Finance Jobs, Women Are Still Shut Out," by Nori Geraldo Yates, she writes, despite all the progress in the quarter century since the term glass ceiling was coined, the phenomenon still persists, and nowhere more than in the most sought-after sectors of finance. My research on private equity, real estate, and venture capital firms shows that the percentage of female senior investment professionals in those sectors is stuck in the single digits. That's true even though women account for 35 to 40% of business school graduates. I'm going to come back to that number. They account for 35 to 40% of business school graduates and express the same degree of interest in finance careers that men do when they start their programs. Here's what she's talking about. Women represent only 6% of senior investment roles across all financial firms. They represent only 6% of the senior employees in private equity firms, 9% of the senior employees in venture capital firms, 4% of the senior employees in real estate, and only 14% of those in junior investment roles. So the pipeline is still not looking good. This matters, of course, on more than one count. Those who touch the money typically earn most and run the firm. And studies show that having a critical mass of women in top decision-making roles enhances corporate performance. And there are a lot of studies about having more women on the board and more women in those chief roles and how they have economically tied those numbers together. And I'm happy to provide that information to anyone who wants it. What's responsible for the underrepresentation and how can it be addressed? The answers to both questions probably lie in a mix of company culture, business school emphasis and environment. If you want to learn more about that, ask me about a Stanford University graduate that I met at the Entrepreneur Center and how she turned away from finance for a particular reason, which I'll happily share with you. Which at Stanford I thought was a little shocking. I thought perhaps that they had the curve on that one, but they're a little surprising. Investor awareness and attitudes of the women themselves. Change is not just a matter of time. I was told 25 years ago that my generation was going to change things. For those of you in the audience, remember you were being told the same thing. It will come about only with active efforts from all parties. Let's go back to Nori's point. Even though women account for 35 to 40% of the business school graduates and express the same degree of interest in finance careers that men do when they start the programs, they're still not choosing a career in the financial services field. Just like they're still not choosing a career in the STEM fields. In the United States, there's a major disconnect between the time women enter business school and when they choose their job upon graduating. In various University of Chicago academic studies on girls in math and women in finance and women in STEM, the number one and number two reasons graduates cite as to their reason why they're not choosing a career in STEM professions, very simple. Number one, they don't see their girlfriends choosing those careers. Number two, they don't see other women in those careers. That's it. With this in mind, in September of 2012, as Jenny mentioned, I launched a nonprofit called Rock the Street, Wall Street. It's a financial literacy program designed to spark the interest of high school girls into careers of finance. Professional women from the field of finance are teaching girls personal financial literacy, savings and investment, entrepreneurship, and teaching them about careers that are available to them in the field of finance. For most of the students, this is the very first time they are learning that such a field is available to them. In fact, I'm very often surprised, and I never fail to be surprised how often I'm told that by my students. These are good students, too. They're also seeing women in action. They see the women teaching the class on finance and comfortably doing so. And that is an issue, in the fact that they are comfortably doing so. There's something called math anxiety, which I'm sure the math teacher is aware of. And that's why why I prefer to have professional women coming in and they're more comfortable with finance, and that does translate to girls and transfers to girls. And we take them on field trips where they see women in action at their workplace. For many girls, it's not enough to tell a girl to dream big. She has to see it, particularly since we're not depicted in popular culture in these ways. Seeing is believing. There are three components to the Rock the Street Wall Street program: financial literacy workshops, which are held usually after school or during intersession programs. We use a curriculum from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School for our curriculum. We give them Wall Street experiences where we go to different firms. And we have a mentor-protege program, which we are beta testing here at UFOG. We have 5 teams here at UFOG. We held one of our very first series of workshops here at UFOG during the spring 2013 session. So thank you, Ms. Hargis, for letting us in. We were one of only 2 outside, let's say, organizations that were allowed in. The other was ACT Prep. I felt very honored then, and I feel very honored now. We offer these classroom workshops to girls in grades 9 through 12 on financial literacy at 13 different locations throughout Middle Tennessee. Since then, I should tell you that, since that time, since we launched, And since we were in fog for that session, we have now been at 13 different locations throughout Middle Tennessee. In all, we have offered 50 workshop sessions at these locations. The Knowledge of Wharton High School, University of Pennsylvania financial literacy curriculum is being taught with relevance, which in doing my academic research, I interviewed 24 Metro Nashville Public School staff, administrators, and teachers who kept pounding into me the idea of relevancy. Subject has to be taught with relevancy by the female financial professionals who come into the classroom setting once a week for 4 weeks on average. Rockland Street Wall Street has offered our students Wall Street experiences at 5 local financial, treasury, or entrepreneurial establishments. These include UBS, National Entrepreneur Center, Diversified Trust Company, a private wealth management firm, the State of Tennessee Treasury Department, where we actually have a bit of a trading pit, as close as I can get to a Wall Street experience right there, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company's headquarters in Franklin, Tennessee. We have, as I mentioned earlier, a mentor protege program where we have 5 teams in place right here at HFA, where we're beta testing the program. Proteges are being encouraged to match their genuine interests with their career goals. The mentors are guiding their proteges in their decision-making with regard to their summer jobs or internship plans. They're assisting in the students' college choices and majors and the schools they choose to go to. And they appear to generally like each other. We did a debrief about 2 weeks ago, and that was a little surprising. I didn't realize how much they were all getting along so well. As all teams have expressed a desire to attend learning events together outside of the classroom and into the community with further interaction together. I now share with you the experience of one of our students who is right here in the audience, Jenny.